Hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome today to Shoot.edit's Lightroom Classic CC Live Q&A with Jared Platt. My name is Jared Bauman. I'm the president here at Shoot.edit, and I'm joined by Caitlin Cooper, the marketing coordinator here at Shoot.edit.
Hello, hello. So excited to be here today.
We're going to be your host, with the majority of today being conducted by Mr. Platt. Okay, so as usual for these things, let me just go through a couple house cleaning items, intro what we're going to be talking about today. And then we're going to kick off the live Q&A. There's not really much of an agenda here for today, so we'll get going with that. First off, the software that you have for your use today, it's very simple. Especially today, we really encourage you to use that chat feature. It's located on the right-hand side of your screen. And we're going to be asking questions to Jared throughout. But the best part about this is it's very interactive. And so you'll get to carry on conversations with other attendees to also get some of your questions answered. Note that your chat conversations are live, so please be mindful and respectful. And I'm also going to throw out a little note. If you want your question to be read aloud, if you want us to pick it, the more general you make it, the more applicable it's going to be to everybody in the room, and the higher the chance we have of kind of grabbing that. So just something to keep in mind as you're asking questions. If you do have a specific question, though, feel free to present it, and there's a lot of people in the chats to help out as well. So for those of you who are new to Shoot.edit, let me just tell you a bit about us. We are the first choice post-processing partner for the Wedding Pro and everything they shoot. We make your images look consistent based on your chosen color profile. Fast is best. Nobody is faster. We provide turnaround time as fast as 48 hours. And a big update that we wanted to just share really briefly. It's up on your screen right now. As of today, we are now supporting Lightroom Classic CC. We have worked very hard to pivot and to support our professionals quickly with that. And we know it's very important to you guys. So if you are joining us as a Shoot.edit customer, we now support Lightroom Classic CC. Just log into your dot tracker and you'll have a notification in your dot tracker account about how to proceed with that. Okay, so for today's live Q&A, we have partnered with some fantastic companies. We've got Blurb, Song Freedom, Spider Holster, Tether Tools, Smart Albums, and Smart Slides. Let me just give you a quick little background on them, and then we'll move on to the Q&A here. Blurb is a book-making platform and creative community that enables individuals to create, publish, share, and sell high-quality photo books, trade books, and magazines in both the print and the digital formats. Song Freedom, who's joining us, provides licensed music for musicians, photographers, cinema photographers. They provide a place where photographers and cinema photographers can come together to find the perfect song for their story. Spider Camera Holster, which is founded in 2009, develops innovative camera carrying gear and accessories. We've got Tether Tools, who designs and manufactures innovative workstations, mounting options for lighting and accessories, and powered solutions for photographers and filmmakers. And last but not least, Smart Albums and Smart Slides, both by Pixeloo, a company on a mission to develop simple and beautiful solutions for the world of photography. So, okay, let's talk about today here. I already see just a ton of people in the chats, and it's so great you guys have joined us to get your questions answered about this new Lightroom Classic update. There's been a flurry of pro photographer questions that we've seen over the last couple of weeks surrounding this new Adobe announcement. And so today we've brought on Jared Platt, who is an Adobe expert, to tackle the questions about the latest updates and help eliminate confusion. He's going to discuss what to do if you've already made the update. He's going to talk about the differences between the old version and the new version. He's going to talk about what he recommends for your Lightroom workflow, and probably a whole host of other things that people ask that we don't even have on the agenda. For those of you who don't know, Jared's a professional destination wedding and lifestyle photographer based in Phoenix. And he's also the photo industry's recognized workflow and efficiency expert. He's sponsored by Adobe, and he is on the Lightroom team. And I'd like to welcome. Are you there? We got a new Lightroom here, and we've got a flurry of confusion. Can you set the stage, just a couple of minutes, set the stage for what we're going to be addressing today and what you've heard in terms of the general sentiment right now and why it was so important for you to be here?
Well, first off, let me just say this, that Adobe didn't do themselves any favor by the way they named things. And so I think the naming caused the most confusion of all, because people got this sense that they were supposed to update, because Lightroom CC was called Lightroom CC, and then the new version of Lightroom CC, people would assume that that's where they want to go because that should be the update, because it's the same thing they've been using. And then they made this other thing called Lightroom Classic, and And because of that, people wanted to follow the Lightroom CC route, whereas other people thought the Lightroom Classic was like the old thing that they were shelving and they were throwing it away at some point. And so there's a lot of confusion. So everybody wanted to go to the update. But then when you open the update, it doesn't look anything like what you're used to from Lightroom. And if you're a professional, it doesn't have all the tools that you need. And so there was just a lot of confusion and a lot of angst as well, because the pro community is up in arms like, oh, they're throwing away Lightroom, the original Lightroom. They're throwing it away and they're going to make us use this dumbed down version of Lightroom CC. And so all of that confusion is misdirected, because there's actually a lot of great stuff that's happening as a result of all of this. But they just did a very bad job with the naming and trying to help people understand what it was. So that's why I'm here, because I really want people to understand how these are positive changes and good things for them, as long as they understand what they're looking at. And so if we understand what we're looking at, then you can go home happy and you can continue to work and you can continue to do all of your professional work, and you're just going to be happier with the final results. So,
well, good. That's a perfect transition point, because that's the most trending question so far right now is basically, if I could kind of summarize it, what's the big differences? What are the big differences between Lightroom CC and Lightroom CC Classic?
Okay, well, in order to answer that question, I am going to bring my computer online here so that you can see it. So hang on one second while I do that.
Oh boy, let's not tempt fate here.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. While you were rebooting, one of the big things we wanted to talk about is just the differences. That's what people are really asking about so far. Is I have, here's Diana. I have Lightroom CC for the last couple of years. What will the update do? I'm confused about what changed, et cetera. So I think that question kind of summarized what we've been seeing the last 10 or 15 minutes.
Right. Okay. So are you seeing my screen now?
Yes.
Yep. We see it on our
end. I'm going to flip between Lightroom Classic and Lightroom CC. So this that you're looking at right now is Lightroom CC. And Lightroom CC, as you can see, is fairly simplified. It's pretty, and it's got, nice big images, no weird grids. It's more of that it's more of that masonry style gallery. If you look at it on the left-hand side, you've got all of your photos, and they're placed in things called albums, which is different because we are used to calling them collections in Lightroom, but now in Lightroom CC, they're called albums. And then over on the right-hand side, all of your tools, adjustments, brushes, retouching tools, all that kind of stuff is over there on the right-hand side, and that's it. That's the whole deal. That's everything there is. There's not a lot of panels and all sorts of stuff like that. It's just, it is what it is. It's just a simple place to be. But if we go to Lightroom, this is my new favorite picture, by the way. I love the llama. Anyway, if you look at this interface, this is what you're used to, but there's, a whole bunch of, there's library and develop and book modules and slideshows, and there's a whole bunch of information on the left-hand side and a whole bunch on the right-hand side. When you go to the develop module, that's where you do your work, and then you do your adjust or selecting in the library module. And so this is a much more complex tool than Lightroom CC. So the basic difference is this. What you're used to in Lightroom, your old Lightroom is now called Lightroom Classic. So Lightroom Classic is your classic Lightroom environment. And the fact that they called it Classic does not mean they're shelving it. It does not mean they're killing it. It just means it's the classic version of Lightroom, the way that you're used to. And so that's it. That's all it means. It doesn't mean anything else. They actually have more programmers and developers on Lightroom Classic than they do on Lightroom CC. So there's plenty of work being done to Lightroom Classic. And it's going to continue to evolve, and it's going to continue to grow. It's going to continue to be in your Creative Cloud. It's going to continue to come down, and they're going to push new updates to it. So they're simultaneously now running two different programs. They're running Lightroom Classic, and they're running Lightroom CC.
So can I ask you a quick question about that?
Yeah,
Is Lightroom Classic for the professional or for the consumer?
Lightroom Classic is for the professional. Now, that's not to say that a non-professional can't use Lightroom Classic. Lightroom Classic is just for I would say that it's for the professional and the serious amateur. It's for someone who really, really, really gets into their photos and they want to organize. Basically, put it this way, if you love Lightroom the way it is, then Lightroom Classic is your version. So Lightroom Classic is the way you want to do your photos if you loved Lightroom to begin with. Okay. Lightroom CC is for my mom and for your friend and for the person who doesn't know where their photos are. That's the person that's trying to be captured by Lightroom CC. If you know where your photos are, and if you know what a RAID 1 hard drive is, or you use a backup system and you make duplicate copies of your photos to make sure that, then Lightroom Classic is where you should stay, because you know where your photos are, and so that's your workflow. Besides that, if you're a shoot.edit customer, if you're a wedding photographer and you're sending your stuff out for someone to edit, then obviously Lightroom Classic is the place that you stay. And I think that's important. If everybody understands, I was using Lightroom, the original Lightroom, and I was doing professional work on it, and I was churning through a lot of files, or I was the type of person that was traveling a lot and doing a lot of photography, and I do a lot of complex work, and I use every tool inside of Lightroom's Develop module, and I organize my photos very specifically, and I know exactly where they are. That's the person that stays inside of Lightroom Classic. They don't leave. They don't start Lightroom CC, because the Lightroom CC has a whole different purpose. And that's not to say that Lightroom CC isn't something that you would use in your workflow as a professional, but it's a different thing, and we'll talk a little bit about that.
Okay, and I think we got the echo fixed. If you were hearing an echo, apologies. I think we got that fixed.
I did see that note. Are we echoing still or no?
No, I think we're good now, but the chats will definitely let us know if we are.
We're getting a thumbs up from Jamie, who's listening, and so it sounds like we should be good, but if not, let us know.
Okay, so just to recap.
Immediately, because in order to fix our issue, I turned on a different speaker, and it looks like
we have Jason and Thomas giving us the green light that we're all good and fixed. So thank you guys for that, and let us know if you guys hear anything else.
All right. Well, 26 minutes in, hopefully we've taken care of all the audio and the technical glitches at this point. Okay, so just to recap, guys. I mean, I know this is a little bit. I think Jared opened by saying a little bit confusing. Lightroom Classic. I mean, I'm obviously over summarizing, but to just really drive it home, Lightroom Classic is for the professional, and the new Lightroom CC is much more of a consumer product. As to quote Jared Platt, it's for my mother.
It is. Okay. And it's great for my mom.
And it's great.
And it's also great for professionals if you understand what it's there for.
Right. And that's where you wanted to spend a little bit. I know when we talked last week about this, you wanted to talk about why the new CC is not bad. It's just you need to know how to use it. However, and again, I mean, at shoot.edit, obviously, over the last couple of weeks, we've been hearing from our professionals asking, what do I do? And the big response there is stay in Classic for your professional work.
Don't move. If you're a professional, and especially if you're using shoot.edit, you stay in Lightroom Classic and you love it. That's what you do. You stay there, you work in it, you send your stuff, and nothing changes, because nothing in Lightroom Classic has changed from the original Lightroom, except that they added a couple extra tools and they speeded it up a little bit, and they added some, stuff under the hood to try and make it faster. Like, those are the things that they worked on.
Okay, so touch on some of these new.
If you're submitting a job, you just submit it the same way.
Yeah, touch on some of these new improvements if you can, and then We've got, I don't know, how many pages of questions do you have now, Caitlin, already?
Oh my gosh, we have like 50, 60 questions. Just they keep coming.
So Caitlin's sorting through all the questions, and she's going to start to prioritize the questions from the chats. If you could, though, before we go there, and I know you have some stuff you want to talk about too, but if you could, before we go there, what are the updates? You know, do a flyby. What are the improvements? What are the things that are great and new and exciting about CC?
Well, I would say this. Number one, it's all speed increases. Like they literally from the ground up started working on fixing little things here and there at the bottom so that it's faster. So it's like they tried to put a new engine in an older car. So they basically souped it up so that it can work better. That's really the main goal of this launch of Lightroom, was the idea that they wanted to make sure that it was fast and that it was responsive. And so a lot of the issues that you're going to that you used to have, you're not going to have anymore because they've souped it up and speeded it up. So that's one of the major things, is just speeding up. But I will say this is my favorite, and I think this one is huge. This is such a huge advancement. So like, this is a photo I took in Iceland, and I know it's not a wedding photo, but there's plenty of people here who aren't necessarily wedding photographers. And so I'm just gonna play around with a photo really quickly. So this is, you know, I want to make this photo look nice, and I want the sky to come in, and there's definitely a sky there. So if I bring, see how there's sky there. So I want to bring the sky in, but I don't want to over darken the actual canyon here. And so I go into the gradient tool, and I'm going to pull down a gradient on that sky, and I'm going to bring the exposure of the sky down. So now you can see that I've got that blue dark sky, kind of the clouds going on there. Add a little saturation, bring the temperature down a little bit, but notice that it's eating into all of the edges of the canyon. And so the coolest advancement that they made, this is literally the big gift that comes inside of Lightroom Classic, and that is this thing called a range mask down here in the bottom right hand corner of the brush. It's in the brush, it's in the radial filter, and in the gradient. If you turn on range mask, you can either choose color or luminance, and when I click on luminance, then I can choose that I only want a certain luminance to be covered in this gradient. So then I'm going to go down here and say, okay, I don't want this gradient to affect anything that's dark. So I grab the dark range and I bring it up, and you'll notice that the sky is still being affected, but it's coming off of the cliff edge. I'm going to turn on the selected mask so you can see how the red is up there in the sky, but it's no longer here in the edges. And so I can completely get rid of it so that it's no longer on any of the cliffs by simply bringing the range to like 90 to 100%. That's the only area that's being affected. And then you can change the smoothness, how much it kind of spills over the edge. And so then when we turn off the mask and look at what we can do, now I can take the exposure up and down and see how it doesn't come into my cliff anymore. Now, where this comes into effect for people is this. Like, for instance, I had a job where I was photographing a bunch of people on a backdrop, and the backdrop was black, but there was some kind of glare hitting the backdrop that made it not quite black. And so I had to go and burn the backdrop down so that it was pure black. The problem with doing that, especially if you have 300 people that you're working with, is that it takes forever to burn those little areas in. So instead, all I had to do was grab a gradient and make the entire background black. And then I went in here to this luminance mask, and I just clicked on that and brought the range so that it was only affecting the black. So I did it the opposite of what I just did. I brought the range down like this, and I brought the whites out so that it was only affecting the black area. And see how it's no longer affecting the white? It's only affecting what's here inside of the cliff. And so by doing that, I only burned down the things that were black. And so I literally was able to burn a backdrop behind people inside of Lightroom, 300 of them in a matter of 5 minutes.
Wow.
So you can see how that's really powerful to be able to. And another place that it works really well, just for people who are, again, people who do portraitures type stuff. I'm looking for my people now. Iceland doesn't have a lot of people. Hold on.
By the way, very jealous of your Iceland trip. We haven't gotten to talk about it yet.
Yes, it was super fun. Okay, so I want to photograph. I want to take a picture of this girl here, and I want to do something just to her face. I can go into the radial filter now, and I could say, well, I want her face to be just a little bit darker, and I want it to have, you know, say a little bit less warmth on it so that it feels a little colder or whatever. And then I'm going to invert this mask, and I'm just going to make a circle around her face. You can see how I've just affected her face, but it's spilling off, and I'm going to go crazy with it. So you can see that it's spilling off into the background. But the background is a different color than her face. So all I have to do is range mask the color of her face and click on this little dropper and grab on the facial colors here and just say, I want to select that area. And now, boom, see how the mask only hits her face? Now that's really, really bad looking, but once we actually use it for real, now you can see how it's just affecting the skin tones of her face, and it doesn't spill off to the edges because the back there is blue. And so I can do different things to her face without having to create a really fine mask with the painting tool and stuff like that. So that's where it comes in really handy when it comes to people itself, and a lot of you are photographing people, so you got to get used to the idea that now you have this tool that allows you to go in and work on, like for instance, if you wanted to do skin softening now, instead of having to paint around on the skin, you just simply use a radial mask and put it over her face, and then choose that color, and it will only affect the skin tones on her face rather than, you know, the trees behind her, or in this case, the ice behind her. So that is an amazing tool. It's the only big, major, huge tool that they put into Lightroom Classic, but the rest of its speed increases. So it's not like you can come in and say, hey, you know, there's 50 new things to Lightroom Classic. You should be super excited about upgrading. You should be excited about upgrading for one tool. One tool is worth upgrading to it. Plus, it's faster. So why wouldn't you?
So we got oh, we're getting the echo again. Hold on one second. Okay, let's see if that did. No, we still got the echo.
Hold
on.
Right, so I'm going to try and change my I'm not going to change my mic, but I'm going to change to headphones and see if I can fix that. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, and I believe the echo is gone. Yep, we're good. Let's move along. You still there?
Okay.
Good. Well, first off, Lindsay says thank you. You literally, she's been working on something for that right now and needed that. Jen, Annette, Anna are all chiming in saying thank you. So very excited about the updates there. I want to move on. We got so much to cover here.
So many questions.
And so Jared, I want to move on to talk about something, touch on it as briefly as you can, only because I think I'm looking at Caitlin's list stacking here. So we'll touch on updating. So a lot of you are asking questions about updating and how to do that. I'm going to touch on that, and then we're going to get to all of your questions. Caitlin has a doc that her and Jamie have been putting together, and so we're going to start tackling those. So I guess the best way to sum it up here is, what do I do about updating? What do I do about, do I uninstall? Do I reinstall? What happens to all my historic work? Try to, as succinctly as possible, address everybody out there who's asking about updates. Because outside of what the differences are, that's the second most popular, trending, pertinent question we're getting.
Okay, so if you are a Lightroom CC subscriber, which presumably everybody who's asking this question would be, if you go up to your Adobe app area and click on your app area, you can see that you've got 2 versions of Lightroom now. You have Lightroom, well, you actually have 3. So you have Lightroom CC, which is that new version of Lightroom that is for my mom. It is for, it's kind of a pared down Lightroom. So Lightroom CC, the one that you're not going to use professionally, you're going to use it for other purposes. And then you have Lightroom Classic CC, and that's the one that we're updating to. And then you can see that you have Lightroom CC 2015. And once you say CC enough, you can see why they really screwed up on the naming, because there's too much CC going on. So Lightroom CC 2015 is your old version. That's the version you presumably have right now that you're not sure what to do with. You can leave that installed. So you have Lightroom CC on your system and you have Lightroom Classic on your system. Once you install Lightroom Classic by clicking the button that says install right here, it will install next to Lightroom CC. So you can have both on your system for a little while until you've got everything figured out. If you installed Lightroom CC, the new pared down version, if you installed that, you don't have to use it. And in fact, there's no reason on earth to install Lightroom CC and Lightroom Classic on the same computer. It makes no sense. You don't need to do that. Install Lightroom Classic, and then once you're done and you've got it, you're using it, then you can go ahead and delete Lightroom CC. And the way you do that is you go into, let me just show you here. So you go into your hard drive, go to your applications, and then inside the Lightroom CC folder, not Lightroom CC, Adobe Lightroom, that's what it's going to look like, because you've got Lightroom CC, that's the new version. Here's the old version, Adobe Lightroom. You have to uninstall. Use this uninstaller and it will uninstall Lightroom 2015, and then you'll start using Lightroom CC, which is the classic, Lightroom Classic CC. Now, let me explain the upgrading process then. If you go to your catalog, and in my case, I'm going to go to my pictures folder, and in the pictures folder is the Lightroom folder, and there's the catalog. And if you were to either right click this and say open with Lightroom Classic, or if you were to grab it and drag it onto the Lightroom Classic logo, it will open the old catalog from your Lightroom 2015. It will open that catalog and it will make a duplicate of that catalog, and then it will update it to Lightroom Classic. It has to be updated to Lightroom Classic because Lightroom Classic is using a new process version for all the photos. Just like all the old updates, as you updated, it would change to different process versions as well. So it's just updating some math and speeding things up and kind of cleaning up your catalog so that it will run faster inside of Lightroom Classic.
Okay, so if you're in the chats and that helped, let us know. If you still have questions, let us know. But
the thing is, Jared, that's it. Once you've updated, there's nothing different inside of Lightroom Classic.
And you can use both at the same time. I think that's something I learned from you last week when we were on the phone, is you can use both on your computer. You don't have to be at one or the other. It's not like an operating system update where you're either on it's not like an operating system update where you're on one operating system or the other. It's not like a phone update where you're on one system or the other. You can be in both. Is that correct?
It's correct. But once you've used Lightroom Classic, you will have no interest in going back to the 2015 version. So just go ahead and install Lightroom Classic. Take your catalog that you're currently working on and open it inside of Classic instead of opening it inside of Lightroom 2015. And once you've done it, you'll enjoy it, and then you can uninstall 2015 because you no longer need it. Especially if you're working with Shoot.edit, you can send them your files the same way you've been sending them before, but now inside of Classic. So there's no difference whatsoever. And so there's almost no reason to keep 2015 unless you're just like fearful that somehow that's going to destroy your world. But you'll notice that once you're in Classic, you'll realize it's the same thing. It just has more tools.
Okay, guys.
But don't upgrade your catalog to Lightroom CC. Don't do that, because that will take it and forever change you into this Lightroom CC universe, which is not the place you want to be if you're comfortable with Lightroom Classic, or if you're professional and you're trying to do like major work.
Okay, repeat the warning one more time. It'd be good for all of us to hear it again.
Okay, I'm going to repeat the warning.
Repeat it. If we had like, drum beats music right now, we'd play it. Repeat the warning one more time.
The warning. You have a catalog that you've been using in Lightroom 2015, the old Lightroom. You have my permission and my blessing to upgrade that catalog to Lightroom Classic, because Lightroom Classic is the same thing you're working with, but it's better. It's faster and it's got more tools. You do not have permission to upgrade to Lightroom CC unless you know that that's where you want to go and you only want simplified and you want to do it very, with very little stuff, and you want less tools and you want it to be more simple and you don't want to submit it to people and you don't want to work in the way. So do not upgrade to Lightroom CC unless you are planning on paring down. It's kind of like my parents when we had 8 kids when I was growing up, and as soon as they got rid of the 8 kids and they just wanted to simplify their life, they got a smaller house. So it's like that's what you're doing if you go to Lightroom CC. You're kind of paring down and you're making things super, 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 super simple, like my mom wants.
Okay. So, hey guys, I've got a couple of things I want to go through right now. First off, again, I'm going to recenter us here. It's 10:45 Pacific time. So that's the clock I'm looking at. Wherever you are in the world, join us. We're at the 45-minute mark. We're going to be here for a while, and that's okay. So hang around. I'm going to recommend we come back and touch on this again a little bit later, just to repeat it. So
Sure.
If you're the type that is like, man, I need to hear things a couple times, stick around. We'll try to touch on this later. Let me get through a couple of announcements, and then I'm going to turn it over to Caitlin to get to a bunch of questions that have come through. First off, I should have touched on this in the beginning. There will be a replay. If you're asking if there's going to be a replay of this, we're going to email it to you. So as long as you gave us an email address, we will send that out to you today, right?
Yep, a little bit later today.
Okay, you got like usually 48 to 72 hours to watch this. How about 48 hours?
48 hours. We might extend it for another day. Just we know that this is really important information. We want to make sure everybody has time to kind of let it all sink in and make sure you have the right info.
So people were asking about, hey, I want to see Jared do that filter, the layer thing that he did earlier. Wow, this is a lot of information. You're going to be able to rewatch this for the next 48 hours or so. Second off, if you really want to know a lot about this, this is really the brief version. Jared did an entire day on Creative Live last week on the new Lightroom updates. And so we actually have a discount for that. Let me pull that up. I've got a lot of paperwork here. We actually have a discount for it. So Jared's class last week was Lightroom CC for the professional photographer. And if you'd like, through the end of the month, you can go to watch that class for 20% off with the code PLAT20. And we're going to go ahead and put a link for that and the code in the chats right now. It's a sticky I see at the top. And so if you're really want to know all of the updates, if you're wanting to watch Jared do what he just did in terms of that live demo, go watch that. That's really what that class is for. We're not trying to take the place of the Creative Live class. Creative Live is the best place to kind of enjoy that. And we really recommend you go watch that. This is really more about talking through the updates. So Jared gave you a great tease on what Lightroom CC and some of the new updates are. And you're going to want to go and really watch his Creative Live class for that. Couple more things, and then I'm going to turn it back over to Caitlin here. Did want to, again, if you missed it in the beginning, just thank all the different companies that work together to help bring this to you guys. We kind of put this together at the last minute. This surprise caught everyone off guard, and we really wanted to respond with an hour or two of clarity with Jared so that we could cut through all the noise and help provide clarity on how you need to navigate the new updates. So we had Blurb who jumped in to help out, Song Freedom, Spider Holster, Tether Tools, Smart Albums, Smart Slides. Just a really big thanks to those companies for joining us. And lastly, if you did miss it at the beginning, if you are a Shoot.edit customer, need to make sure we mention as of today, we now support Lightroom Classic and we now support the new Lightroom CC. And so we worked really hard to pivot on your behalf for that. And so we are now, to take advantage of that, just go log into your dot tracker. You're going to want to make sure that you get the updated catalog for that. Don't just start submitting without that new catalog, but go into your dot tracker account for that. So Again, if you had questions about the upgrade process, we'll circle back on that. And I also recommend that you access the replay if that's something you're still struggling with. At this point, I want to turn over to you for your pages and pages of questions.
Yeah, I have a few more than just a couple pages. Jared, let's transition and talk about kind of like the catalog system, and is it more complicated? We're getting a lot of questions. Should people throw away their old Lightroom 2015 catalogs? Where should the catalogs live? Should they still be using multiple, or is it better to move to a singular catalog? Can you kind of touch on how that whole system works with this Lightroom Classic CC? Okay,
so this is where Lightroom CC, the new simplified version, really actually helps you a lot. So let's talk about the catalog. So you have a catalog, and that is the Lightroom 2015. When you import that into or open that catalog with Lightroom Classic, it will update it. So now you'll have two catalogs. One of the catalogs is Lightroom Classic, and the other one is the old version. It just duplicates itself and updates. So this 2000, once you've worked through the 2000 or the Lightroom Classic, once you've worked through that and you know that everything kind of transferred well, you can throw away that 2015 catalog because you have the catalog inside of Lightroom Classic. So you can get rid of it, or you can keep it as like a final backup for everything you did up to the time that you transitioned. But it's no longer needed. You're not going to be using that. You're going to be using the new updated version of that catalog, which will be the Classic catalog. Now, in response to your question about whether you should use one catalog or multiple, I am a big proponent of using one catalog. And it only gets more important as you get more into this cloud system, because now you have, I'm gonna go back to my screen here so that you can see my screen. But if Lightroom Mobile, up here, you just, up in the top left-hand corner, you tell it to synchronize with Lightroom Mobile. And then everything down here in the collections area can be put onto Lightroom Mobile. And so if you're only using one catalog, you can put a whole bunch of anything that you want from that catalog can now go up to Lightroom Mobile, which means that not only can you look at it on your phone and on your iPad, and even it'll show up in your Apple TV. On the new versions of Apple TV, there's a Lightroom app in there, so you can see your images on a website somewhere, anywhere in the world. You don't even have to have access to your computer. You could look at it on someone else's computer. But not only that, but if you go now to let's just pretend that we're going to a different computer. Because it doesn't make sense to install both Lightroom Classic and Lightroom CC on the same computer. So I'm pretending this is another computer. So if I go home with my laptop tonight and I want to play around with any of the images, it used to be that I couldn't synchronize a Lightroom catalog to another Lightroom catalog, because Lightroom Classic or Lightroom 2015 it could only synchronize the cloud to one catalog. But now, as long as I have enough seats, so however many seats you have in most people have 2, but if you have 3 or 4 or 5 or whatever, you can light up Lightroom CC on any computer, and you have access to every single one of the collections that you put onto the cloud right here. And if I click on it, I can adjust these images, or I can work on these images, or put them into, and I can add stars and flags to them and all sorts of stuff from a computer. Not just from a phone or an iPad, but now my computer has become a mobile device, and I can look at my entire catalog that's back on my computer at work here. I can look here, and I can find those images here just by scrolling down and looking for my Iceland photos. And there's Iceland and a ball game, but there's all my Iceland photos, and I'm looking through those, and I can play with those, and I can adjust them, and I can flag them and star them and stuff like that on a computer rather than an iPad. And then when I get back to work, everything is exactly what I did on my computer at home. And the same thing's true because Lightroom CC connects to the cloud. If I were to put something into Lightroom CC on my laptop, it would go into the Lightroom CC, and then it would show up here inside of Lightroom Classic at my studio. So if I was in France, I could upload, excuse me, I could upload my photos from France, and before I flew home, the full original raw photos would also be on my computer at home. So Lightroom CC is a great thing to have on a laptop so that you become completely mobile, not just with iPads and iPhones, but with actual computers. That's what I love about it. And that's why you want to have one catalog instead of a whole bunch, because one catalog, if you have multiple catalogs, only one of those catalogs can actually sync. So you kind of shoot yourself in the foot. There's the answer for that.
Okay. Well, again, we're getting some great feedback here. I know we usually are able to spend more time touching base on it. I think I'll read Thomas's quote. I think this is the most,
That's a good quote.
It summarizes how a lot of people are responding to chats. This all makes sense. I wish Jared could simplify the rest of my life too. All right.
Hey, Jared, we have a couple questions from some of the partners that came on and supported this, and I thought they were some good questions we could quickly touch upon.
Okay.
Specifically, with tether tools, I know tethering is a huge part of something you do, and if it's a part of photographers' workflows, are you able to tether into Lightroom Classic? Is that still an option? Does the workflow change?
No, the workflow for tethering doesn't change at all inside of Lightroom Classic, but it's not available inside of Lightroom CC. So if you think you're going to tether in Lightroom CC, you're going to be really disappointed. So again, it's like Lightroom CC is very pared down, whereas Lightroom Classic, same things apply. Everything's exactly the same. And so you'll tether in the same way. You'll use all the same functionalities, and it'll work exactly the same, except now you have the ability when you're tethering to automatically add those images to a collection, automatically put them on the cloud. And so then someone else, like let's say you're tethering on location and you're shooting a fashion shoot, your assistant could be back at the studio with Lightroom CC, and all those images would be coming into Lightroom CC as you're shooting them to your studio, and he could be adjusting them, and those would then feed back to you, and your images would be being adjusted as you were shooting by your assistant back at the studio. See how that works?
Right. So in short, it works with Lightroom Classic, does not work with CC.
Correct. In short, that's exactly right.
Perfect. And then one other question, specifically with the Blurb book module in Lightroom, has this been affected at all by the updates? The Blurb Books, book module is still pretty much intensively a Blurb module, which I love. So I make a book every time I do a wedding or every time I do a portrait. I'm always making Blurb Books, and I make them right there inside of the book module. And then obviously when I'm making an album, I'll go into Smart Albums and do it there. But those two workflows, both with Blurb and with Smart Albums, they stay exactly the same because, again, Lightroom Classic hasn't really changed. Although I will say that the book module itself has gotten an update, and it's just got some better functionality to it. So it's just better. So a lot of the little ins and outs and stuff are better inside the book module. Nothing that you'll notice, except it's just better. So it's like behind the scenes type of stuff is better.
Just going to circle in really quickly. We're nearing the top of the hour. Is that how they say it? I feel like a radio host.
I think so. I think that's what they say.
Well, we've got people from literally all over the world here, so I don't want to say it's 11 a.m. because it's I don't know what time it is in Israel and Greece and Stockholm and Holland and Moscow and all these other places. But we're nearing the top of the hour, which is typically where we go. We go about an hour on these things usually. But today is unique, and so we're going to carry on and continue answering questions. Is that all right with you, Jared? By the way, I didn't even ask.
Yeah, that's fine. No, I'm happy to. We had a little slow start with the audio, so let's keep going and get some questions answered.
Good. So anyways, just a reminder for all of you who might have joined us midway or might have just joined us, a couple of the high-level bullet points. Yes, there will be a replay. It will be emailed to you. So if you missed any of it, or if we went too fast, or if you need to hear some of what we talked about again, it will be emailed to you. We have talked basically about what the key differences are between Classic and CC. We've talked about, Jared actually took us on a demo of some of the big additions to Classic. We also went through some of the topics such as updating and how to handle that. We talked about things like the Blurb integration. We talked about tethering. We've also talked about a couple other things I don't have in front of me right now, cataloging and all that sort of stuff. Catalog system. So you will get an email with the replay. Stay around because we are going to try to circle back on some of these things while also getting some more questions answered.
Yeah, so Jared, I have another question. We're getting quite a few questions about this topic, and that has to do with current operating systems, and is that going to be supported by the new version? And also recommendations on where everything should be living. Should it be like on an external hard drive? What do you recommend? Everybody has obviously different workflows for that, but we're getting a lot of question on the preferred and best ways to be doing that moving forward.
Okay, that's a good question. So first, let's tackle the initial question, and I forgot what it was. What was the first part of your question?
Operating systems, yes, overall, are they going to be supported?
So there's no issues with operating systems. So if you're on the newest version of Mac, it's what is it, High Sierra or something, you're going to be fine.
Yeah, I think that is.
So there's no known issues there. If you stay, I haven't updated to High Sierra because I just have been lecturing on Creative Live and stuff. So you never want to change right before you go on a lecture because like, whatever operating system might mess with their recording system or whatever. But there's no known issues with High Sierra. There's no known issues that I know of on the PC world either. So I wouldn't worry about that. The Lightroom, again, hasn't changed so much that it's like completely going to, freak out on a newer system. Lightroom CC it's built on a brand new system. And so it's actually faster and more compatible, or more, I don't want to say compatible, but it's built for newer operating systems. Whereas Lightroom Classic is still, it's built on an older system. So they have to really tweak hard to make it go faster. Whereas this new Lightroom CC, I think someday they hope that they'll get all the stuff from Lightroom in it so that then it's this amazingly fast and robust program. But right now it's fledgling 1.0. So now when it comes to where your catalog should be, there's two different ways to think about that. A, am I a traveling photographer? B, am I a stable photographer that just sits at a studio or at home? If you're in a stable environment where you're always at the same computer, you want that catalog to be on the fastest drive that's in your computer or attached to your computer the fastest way possible. So if that is an internal drive that's a solid state, that's where you want it to be. If you have a PC that has multiple hard drives in it, get yourself a solid state internal hard drive and put your catalog on that drive. That's where you want your catalog to be there, and you want your cache to be there. You want everything that has to do with your Lightroom catalog and Lightroom caching and stuff like that to be on that solid state internal drive. If you are a traveling photographer and you need to cart your catalog around with you to different computers, that's when you would use an external catalog, but still you want it on a solid state, as fast as possible drive with the fastest possible connection into the computer, so that the slowdown, because that's where the slowdown is. Lightroom doesn't even have to look at your pictures hardly anymore. It just looks at the catalog. So you want the catalog to be on the fastest drive, fastest connection to the computer. However, now with Lightroom CC involved, because you can have Lightroom Classic running all of your stuff at the studio, and then you can have Lightroom CC on a laptop computer for your kind of running around work and stuff that you're not really working hard at it. You're just kind of playing around with it, or you're watching TV and you're looking at images, or you're traveling on an airplane and looking at images, that's where Lightroom CC can actually tether you back to the studio, so you don't have to travel around with an external hard drive, because it literally will be on your other computer at the same time that's on this computer.
Let me jump in here. Let's camp on catalogs for a little bit. I think maybe because you touched on catalogs earlier, we've gotten a bevy of questions on them. I'm trying to find a way to kind of summarize it best. I saw a question from Gary. I saw a question from, and this chat is like a Twitter feed.
Yeah.
From Karen on catalogs. We've got a lot of questions on catalogs. Can you try to summarize what people are asking?
Basically, all of these questions have to do with people having multiple catalogs. They're wondering if it would be best to have them combined, or is there an easy way, if you have multiple catalogs, to combine them into one main catalog?
Yeah, the easiest way to do that is to take the one catalog that has the most stuff and is the most set up the way you like it. So like if you have a whole bunch of collections that you like in a certain catalog, take that one catalog and make it your master catalog. And then from the master catalog, you're going to go, let me turn on my my screen here so you can see this. File menu, and you're going to go to import from another catalog. When you go to import from another catalog, it will bring up a dialog box looking for that catalog. So it's going to say, okay, where is the catalog? You just simply click on the catalog you want to import and hit choose, and it's going to import everything from that catalog into your current catalog. And it's going to give you an import dialog box the same way as when you're importing images from a camera card or whatever. And it's going to ask you, do you want to leave the images where they are, or do you want to bring them in and recopy them? And of course, you just want to leave them where they are, and that'll point to whatever disk they happen to be on, and then it'll pull it all in, and you'll just start seeing your catalog grow, so that instead of one catalog with one folder in it, you'll see how my jobs folder just has a ton of jobs in it. So you're just bringing in one job at a time, and they will just slowly kind of fill up inside your catalog, just like they are in mine.
Okay, good. Just to quickly circle back, I feel like I've done it a couple times already, so apologies to those of you who've already heard this, but if you have joined us, we've had a lot of new people come in. So just a reminder, we've already covered a lot of topics. You will get an email with a replay. And so if you joined us late, or if you missed some of it, we had a couple audio issues there in the very beginning. If that seemed to last longer for you, you'll get an updated email with the replay, and you have about 48 hours or so to watch that. So definitely want to encourage you to go back and watch that if you have any questions about it. There were some questions also. Remember, again, Jared was on Creative Live last week. Jared, can you just spend 60 seconds talking about what you talked about last week? The questions that were coming in are, hey, if I get this, is this on all of the new updates?
Yeah,
so et cetera, et cetera.
Last week on Creative Live, I actually had two classes. One was called Organizing Your Digital Photo Life, which was all about Lightroom CC. So it was about the simplified version of Lightroom. It was 2 days long, and it was full of information about Lightroom CC, how it works, where to put things, stuff like that. So, and I literally had my mom in the audience. I was teaching her how to use it. Then the third day, we had a whole new class. So it's a one-day class, and it's called Lightroom CC for the professional photographer. And it is specifically geared to teach Lightroom or Lightroom photographers, pro photographers, how to use Lightroom, what's new inside of Lightroom Classic, and then also how to pair that with Lightroom CC and how to work the whole ecosystem to your advantage. And that's what that was about. It's a one-day course. It's really inexpensive, especially with the discount. And if you buy the course, we actually give you a whole bunch of presets to go along with it that are worth $35. So in the end, it almost costs you nothing to buy the class because you're getting free presets to go with it. So it's a great deal. So if you're interested in really digging down into what's new inside of Lightroom Classic and how do I use Lightroom CC to work with it, that's a good course. But this is a good overview today to kind of answer these questions. And I did see a question from Karen asking, am I saying, she says, are you saying that you should have CC, Lightroom CC on my laptop and not Classic? And what I'm telling you is that Classic is good to have on one base computer where you do all your work. And then you can have Classic on all your other computers too, but have CC on your traveling laptop, because then it allows you to reach back in to your studio computer. So Lightroom CC is that traveling companion. That's what it's for. It's like it turns your computer, a computer, into an iPad so that you can work on a computer instead of having to work just on your iPad if you want to reach back in.
Okay. Well, hey, look at you. You're able to pay attention to the chats.
I know, that's impressive.
I guess, we announced while you were in your sound transition, while we were trying to get all that figured out, that we actually went back and looked it up, because every time we do one of these, I say, what number is this, Jared? And you're like, I don't know what number we're on in terms of the number of times we've done a live Q&A or a live training with you. This is number 8.
Wow.
I expect your reaction to be a little bit more impressed.
Well, no, you realize that I was on Creative Live last week, and it was my number 35. I think.
Well, fine. Okay, that's just
so
great.
I'm just saying, 35 is a big number. 8's a big number, though. It's good. I love being here. So
see, but what if I told you that that's more than double anybody else that's been on our live online trainings? Huh? Does that feel pretty good?
Does that mean that I just don't get the point across the first time and you have to keep bringing me back, or does that mean that you just like having me around?
You're well received. Well received. All right, Caitlin, more questions.
Let's see here.
There's another question. I gotta answer this question. Dandy asked, my old library size was 873 megabytes, and my new one is 478 megabytes. What happened? Did I make a mistake? No, you didn't. That's the beauty of it. When you update from Lightroom 2015 to Lightroom Classic, your catalog size will almost cut in half. And that's part of why it's faster, because they've figured out how to kind of conserve file space. And it's not, your photos aren't getting crunched. It's just the data that helps run the database is getting compressed. So your photos are still fine. It's just the data is getting compressed so that it's easier to run the catalog. So that's a great question, Dandy.
Yeah, and earlier too, we had a few people asking about if they have Lightroom on external drives. Is the new Lightroom Classic, is that going to take up more or less space, even on the external drive? And it sounds like it's going to take up less space. Correct?
It'll take up less space as long as once you've updated the catalog, you delete the old catalog. Otherwise, you added a catalog.
Right. And what about, so a lot of people have been talking about that they have everything on their hard drives and on external hard drives. So should they keep it as a single source on their hard drives and then work on that in Lightroom Classic? Should they be moving it somewhere else? Is it okay to keep that current workflow?
Keep it exactly the way it is. Don't change a thing except just open up the catalog from Lightroom Classic instead of Lightroom 2015. That's it. In fact, if you want to simplify the whole process, if you just install Lightroom Classic and uninstall Lightroom 2015, then anytime you double click a catalog, it will automatically go to Lightroom Classic and open up inside of Lightroom Classic, update itself, and you'll be done with it.
Jared, I got a question for you. Are there any new expenses that come with these updates? Are there any new charges? Is there anything that's going to change in terms of how much people are paying? No,
you have the same price structure. Most people are on the CC photography plan, which is like $9.99 a month. That does not change for the next year. And then the following year, it changes to $14.99, but it comes with a terabyte of storage space in the cloud. Instead of, I think right now it's 20 gigabytes, but and you can update now to the $14.99 a month one and get the full terabyte so that you can put more stuff in the cloud, which I think you're going to find that you're going to start to do more of that, especially if you utilize Lightroom CC from the road to import stuff into your laptop and have it send it back home to Lightroom Classic. If you do kind of that kind of stuff, you'll be using more of that cloud space. But if you just keep going the way you're going and you don't change a thing, you'll pay the same price that you're paying now. You'll have the same 20 gigabytes in the cloud, and you won't know any difference except Lightroom seems to run faster and has extra tools in it.
Question on cameras and lenses that are supported. Even the first day it was released, I know everybody around Shoot Edit was talking. It had a lot. Well, most people who work here at Shoot Edit are also photographers of some sort. There are a lot of questions about, man, is my X camera going to be supported? Is my Y camera going to be supported? Is this camera supported? These lenses. Touch on that for us, would you?
Actually, Lightroom Classic launched with about 20 new cameras and lenses supported.
Okay.
So like I looked at the list and it was just a ton of new stuff, like a lot of Sony stuff, a lot of Panasonic stuff, a lot of Fuji stuff, a couple Canon things, a couple Nikon things. So it was a huge update for just like right before it launched. There's just a huge influx of like new cameras and new, lenses and stuff like that. So yeah, I don't think there's anything that's unsupported right now.
Okay. Good to hear.
And by the way, the important point, whether you're using Lightroom Classic, Lightroom CC, or you're using Lightroom on your iPad, every single one of those is using exactly the same raw engine processor. Same with Photoshop, same with Bridge. They're all using exactly the same raw engine processor. So there is no difference between the support that you will get on any of these for cameras and for like adjustments. And if you adjust something in one, it will look the same in the other because they're all using exactly the same raw processor. Okay,
so just to summarize, no new charges, and cameras and lenses, by and large, should be completely supported.
Yeah, I'd be absolutely surprised if there was something that wasn't supported.
Yeah, there's nothing of that got left out or that isn't supported right now. So, again, no new charges. I'm still seeing people ask about it in the chats. One charge, same charge you were paying. You kind of, I think, dropped a bomb on a few people there, Jared, talking about the price increase, but we're just going to leave that where it is and move along.
Well, not for a year. You can stay at $9.99 for the next year, and then I think they increase it to $14.99 because they're giving you extra space in the cloud.
Yeah. Let's see here. I just want to remind everybody that we're going to go a few more minutes. So if you have any final questions, I know I saw Jamie and Caitlin put out a call for final questions in the chats there. Feel free to post any final questions you have. Thank you for joining us. We've been going about an hour and 15 minutes now. And, we'll go a little bit longer here. I just want to encourage everybody to watch that replay. A lot of people were really, can you just, for anybody who might've joined late, Jared, spend 30 seconds talking about what you went over earlier when you went through some of the new updates that were made in Classic, because there were updates made in Classic. Classic is, I don't want to mischaracterize here, but it's the old version. It's the professional version. Mm-hmm. And with the CC announcement, which is the consumer version, did come a few but powerful updates to the professional Classic version. 30 seconds so that people who might have missed it can be encouraged to go back and watch that when they get the replay. What did you cover? Okay, so there are quite a few little tiny updates here and there, but the major update that was in Lightroom Classic, the major tool update, is in the develop module inside of like the brush area, the radial, and the gradients. There's something down at the bottom called a range mask. And the range mask allows you to paint something or put a gradient on something and then remove it from a certain color or tone throughout. So it's easier to do a sky with trees because you can cut the trees out instantaneously because they're a different tone than the sky. So the range mask inside of your three tools up here on the
top right-hand side are really important. And then the rest of it is mostly speed increases, but there are some other things, like, for instance, there's some extra ways that you can sort. So there's different sort abilities now, so you can sort by various things now, like file type. So you can find all your JPEGs and pile them into one place, or all your PSDs. And then the library filter has more ways to sort things. There's a lot of things like that that are just like little tiny things. And we in my Creative Live class, we went through pretty much every single one of them. So you can there's quite a few, but most of it is speed increases, some sorting options. But really, that range mask is, boy, it saved me 3 days worth of work, because I didn't have to burn the background and kind of mask around every single person 300 photographs. I was able to just do a gradient, mask out the people because they were a different tone than the black, and then it was done. That was it.
Let's get a link when we can live. Let's get a link back up for Jared's Creative Live class. I know we had a couple more people asking about it.
By the way, it says, I saw a question in here that says that class is called Lightroom CC for the professional photographer. Yes, but it covers Classic and CC. It's why do you want Lightroom CC, and how would you use it, and what's in Classic? And so it's everything. If you're a professional photographer and you're using Classic and you want to understand why Lightroom CC is even involved, that's a good class to take. Or if you just want to see what's good in Lightroom Classic, it's a good class to see.
And again, so I saw a question come in, but if you're a Shoot.Edit customer in the thick of busy season right now, we've totally got your back. We now support Lightroom Classic. We support the new version. And so that is available inside of your dot tracker. Just log in and make sure that you get everything needed to use the to use the new workflow tools that are there. So, okay, I think we're going to just wrap up here with one more question. Oh yeah, go ahead, Jared.
So earlier I answered a question about the size of the catalogs being smaller.
Yes.
You know what that means, Jared? That means that now, instead of your upload time being a whopping 15 minutes, it's going to be like 8 minutes.
Well, not everybody has internet as fast as you.
Right, but I mean, even if you have slow internet and it's taking you an hour to upload a catalog, now it's going to take you 30 minutes.
I mean, the big deal with Lightroom 5 was that you went from maybe 18 hours of upload time down to a couple of hours or an hour. And
yeah,
you're right. That's something I hadn't even realized.
No, it's going to speed things up. I mean, the smart previews will still be the same size because they're images, but the catalog itself and all that data is going to be crunched significantly, so it'll speed up workflow.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Or upload times, so that's good.
That is great. Less bandwidth, less amount of space in your computer, quicker uploads to Shoot.Edit. Those are all.
And it'll just run faster too. So that's the real positive, is that you'll see it when you're working on your actual catalog. So.
Caitlin, final question out of you, and then I want to turn over to Jared, and then we've got a couple things. So we're not done yet, guys. But I'd say we're getting to the last 10 minutes here or so.
I think so. Okay, Jared, last question I have for you that a few people were asking is about images, how it works with Lightroom in the cloud, and should people be placing their images on the cloud? What happens if they're traveling and uploading images into Lightroom? How do they, when they get home, make sure that those images are on their home computer? Is the cloud the best way to do that? Suggestions, thoughts on that?
Okay, that's a really good point. So it's important to understand that there is a difference between Lightroom Classic and the way it interfaces with the cloud, and Lightroom CC and the way it interfaces. So Lightroom Classic interfaces with the cloud, with the Creative Cloud, by virtue of collections. So if you tell a collection by clicking on a little box right over here, if you tell that little box, you click on it, just like that, it will automatically start uploading to the cloud. It will upload that collection to the cloud through Lightroom Mobile. So it goes up to the cloud from here, and what it sends is what's called a smart preview. That's the thing that we send to Shoot.Edit every week when we do a wedding. We send them our smart previews along with our catalogs. That's what we're sending to them. So it's uploading that smart preview, which, by the way, is a really great file type. In fact, it's such a great file type that Shoot.edit can use that smart preview, which is a raw image, to create a gallery of images in their extra galleries and print them directly for your client, so you never have to re-upload a gallery. So the smart preview is a really good file type that's getting uploaded to the cloud, but it's not the full original RAW. It's kind of a smaller version of that RAW. And I've printed prints that are 30 inches tall with a smart preview, and it looks great. So we printed it through White House, and they came back, and man, it's pretty amazing what you can get out of a tiny little smart preview. Anyway, so that's what goes up to the cloud. Now, if you're inside of Lightroom CC, which is the kind of more pared down, simplified version of Lightroom, anything that you put in Lightroom, it's not by virtue of clicking on a collection, anything at all that you put into Lightroom. If you import something into Lightroom CC, it automatically sends the entire full file, all 30 megabytes or all 40 megabytes of your file go up into the cloud, and then they come from the cloud back down into Lightroom CC as the full original file into a folder, and you get to choose what folder it comes to, but in my case, it comes to right here. It comes to this folder called From Lightroom CC. And so you can see these are images that came from Lightroom CC and downloaded back into my, so the full image was originally put into my laptop on these files, and now they came back down. And also you can see things that I shot with my iPhone went straight up to the cloud, and the full original file came down here. And so I've got, you know, photos here that are, this photo here is a 6,720 pixel wide file that went up to the cloud from my laptop and down to Lightroom here. So now I have two copies, one that went into my laptop, one that came down here to my Lightroom Classic catalog. So that's the way they deal with it. They deal with it differently. Lightroom Classic only sends smart previews up to the cloud, but Lightroom CC sends the original up to the cloud, but the original comes down into Lightroom Classic. So it's a good way to back stuff up from the road. But the beauty of Lightroom's Classic not sending all of that stuff up to the cloud is that I can send an entire portfolio of like 20,000 images from Lightroom Classic up to the cloud, and it won't take up 1 megabyte of my space because it's a smart preview, and that resides in a completely different little pot. That's like a free pot. The only pot that takes away from your space on the cloud is the full files that are being sent up from Lightroom CC, the smaller version of Lightroom. So if you think about that, then that means that you could put everything that's inside of your catalog, you could put it up on the cloud from Lightroom Classic, and it wouldn't cost you any space on the cloud whatsoever. And then you'd be able to see it from any of your phones, any of your iPads, and any computer that has Lightroom CC on it. So it's a great system, fantastic system.
That is going to wrap up the questions we have here. A couple quick things though before you jet off. Number one, replay. I've said it many times. I'll say it again. Replay is going to be sent to you over email and later today.
And it'll be available for the next 48 to 72 hours for you to rewatch in case you missed anything, in case you need to hear it again. That's going to be over to you shortly. Number two, huge thank you to all the companies that helped put this on. Like I said, we had thousands that arrived today for this live, basically a demo / Q&A with Jared. So a Blurb, Song Freedom, Spider Holster, Tether Tool, Smart Album, Smart Slides. Thank you for the support today. We pulled this together pretty quickly, and it went really well. There's so many people that I think learned a lot here today. Number three, take advantage of Jared's Creative Live classes. Yeah, but he's got more than one.
Well, he's got 35 as he rubbed in our face. I think I remember that number pretty well. But the one that we're talking about is the one that's really for professionals on just all the updates, all the changes, all the modifications. We've got a link for that live right now. And you can get 20% off that class with the code PLATT20. That's all one word, PLATT20. And that is good through the end of the month. So take advantage of that. If today was really meant to just be a flyby in terms of all the details, it was really meant to just get your questions answered and talk about it as a community. So that has all the details. Number 4, you want to touch and talk about where Jared's going to be next and some of his upcoming events.
Yeah. So Jared, if people want to see where you're going to be next, gosh, I know you are all over, all over the map, literally this year. And if people want to be able to keep up with you, see where you're going to be next, the best place to go, I believe, is your website, right? jaredplatt.com/events.
Yeah, that's the easiest place because anytime we have something new, we just put it there. So like I'm going to be in Italy. So those of you who are in Italy, I'll be there on November 25th or something like that.
I think we might have had some Italians here today.
I think we did.
Yeah, so I'm excited. I'm going to a little place called Riccione. So it's on the East Coast. So I'm pretty excited about that. Never been there before.
Good stuff.
Perfect. Well, we have a link up in the chats where everybody can find you, and we'll even add that into the email we send later today so that people can have that on hand.
Jared, we got a lot of really great feedback from the day. I'm going to read George's comment before he had to take off a few minutes ago. Thank you, Jared and Shoot.edit. Thank you to the sponsors as well. I watched Jared last week on Creative Live, purchased the course, and today's session has helped me with the installation and with the options available. I need to go, but thank you again, George, from, is that Saskatoon, Canada?
It is.
Did I get that right? So anyways, a lot of similar feedback rolling in. Thank you. So any final thoughts, Jared, on summarizing today?
I think the most important thing to keep in mind for everybody is don't be reactionary about this change. Lightroom Classic is still your go-to extremely robust system, and it's going to always be there. It's not going to go away. It is what they're still working on. They're still advancing it. You're still going to see this. It's going to be exactly what you expect it to be, and it's going to get better and better and better, just like it always has. But they've added one extra option for you, and that is that little tiny Lightroom CC program, which will get better and better and better every couple months for the next 5 years probably. Will just kind of increase and get better and better. But that is a tool that you can use. Don't look at it as like a thing that's not worth your time, and don't look at it as something that's going to take over and then they're going to kill your professional level stuff. None of that's going to happen. Lightroom CC is just an extra tool, just like Lightroom Mobile is on your phone. It's just a way for you to reach inside and be able to access things from a different portal. And there's so much more that it can do too, just in searching capabilities and stuff, because it's using what they call Adobe Sensei in the cloud, because it's a cloud-based system. And so because everything's in the cloud, you can actually search stuff visually. So even if you never keyworded before, you can still find stuff based on, I want a girl with a hat in some corn, and it will find it for you. So it's an amazing system. So don't be afraid of what's going on at Adobe. Embrace it and get excited about using these tools that they're giving to you, because, I mean, as photographers, we want to shoot more and do less editing. And it's because of tools and services that you can shoot instead of sitting behind a computer. And this is just one more way for you to not have to do so much work, because they're giving you better tools, they're giving you better access. You can access your images anytime, share them from anywhere. And then if you're using Shoot.edit to do all of your adjusting, you don't even have to adjust them. All you do is shoot them and then play with them. That's it. You don't do any of the work.
And if there's one thing I walked away with, it's classic equals professional.
Yes.
Okay, classic equals professional. Thank you, guys. If you missed it and you're a Shoot.edit customer, you're joining us today, we support the new version. We support Classic. We support CC. So that is now available in your dot tracker. For everybody, I hope you gained a lot of clarity on the announcement. I hope you gained a lot of clarity on what you should be using. I hope you got to a taste of some of the new features that are available. I got your questions answered about updating, upgrading, cataloging, all that different stuff we talked about. Watch the replay. And again, a big thanks, Jared, for joining us. This is needed. This was well needed. We all kind of sensed the importance of hosting something like this. And I can't thank you and all the other companies that joined us enough for being here. Watch that replay, guys. And until next time, until your ninth visit. Until your ninth visit.
We'll get up to 35 at some point. We'll get there.
Until then.
We'll just have like one of these a week sometime, and then we'll just rack it up.
Yeah, exactly. We'll find some way to cheat the system, right? Get you up to 36.
Just split this up into 9 or 10 different little tiny ones, and then
little sprints.
We can double that way. That'd be good. 18's better than 9. I'll tell you that much.
That's right.
Thank you for being here. Seriously, it's always a treat, and thank you for all the value you brought. So really appreciate that.
You bet.
All right, guys. We'll talk soon. Thank you again, and until next time.